It is fairly standard in T20 cricket to begin with third man and fine leg as the two fielders outside the circle. With a hard new ball and a fast bowler charging in edges and skews tend to travel fine behind the wicket. On slower pitches, they often carry squarer, which is why Pat Cummins had a deep point in place for Rohit Sharma from the very first ball of the 2023 ODI World Cup final at this venue. This was another World Cup final in Ahmedabad. The surface, though, was different. A mixed soil pitch part red and part black, with a bit more bounce than the slow black soil track from 3 years ago. Mitchell Santner knew what to expect. He had spoken about the pitch being pretty flat and high scoring on the previous evening. And so, unlike Cummins in 2023, he began with the more conventional protection. Third man and fine leg stood in place during the power play as Matt Henry, his best bowler, ran in with the new ball. Santner also knew what to expect from India in those early overs. They would come hard at the bowlers the same way they had during the 5-match bilateral series and through most of this World Cup. It had not always been pretty, but it had been relentless. The problem for New Zealand was that those first 6 overs passed far too quickly. India's openers surged to 92 without loss in the power play. By the time the field could spread, the damage had already been done. Credit to Sanju and Abhishek at the top to get 90-92, I think, off the power play. Santner admitted afterwards, "It is pretty tough from there to come back. It was a pretty good wicket throughout. There wasn't much for, I guess, the bowlers. The cutters weren't really holding not much spin. So I think either way you look at it, I think if we could have got a couple in the power play, squeeze them a little bit through the middle, 2020 could have been chased down on a very good wicket." The head start India gained proved decisive. None of that should take away from the quality of their batting. On a stage like a World Cup final, attacking instinct must meet execution. But New Zealand also made a series of small decisions that widened the gap and left them chasing the game far earlier than Santner would have liked when he chose to bowl. Matt Henry's opening over had begun well. 4-dot balls set the tone before Samson finally broke free, flat batting a short ball over Longan. It was an early reminder that this pitch was closer to the one seen in the recent bilateral series between these teams, and New Zealand's immediate response seemed to search for variation. Across the 5 overs of pace they bowled in the power play, nearly every third delivery was a slower ball. The idea was clear enough. If the pitch was good for batting, the bowlers would try to take pace off and/or hide the ball outside off with a point and deep point in place. But the execution and sequencing never quite aligned. Lengths drifted either too full or too short. Only 8 balls were in the good length area, and only 12 runs were scored off them. There wasn't a lot of seam or swing to start, so I think the bowlers are trying to do what they can to get out of the hitting arc, Santner said. "We know how good Sanju, Abhishek, Kishan are at hitting all over the wicket. I think whichever way you look at it, there's no perfect plan when guys are going. I think it is hard to stop when guys are going like that. So whether it was a few more Yorkers or closing out balls, I think we tried the wide stuff. And then we tried the 2 on the leg side. So we tried everything. But yeah, I think credit has to go to the way they set that power play up, and then from there you can go pretty hard and to get a good score like they did." By the time Henry returned, India had already raced to 51 in 4 overs, and Santner had gone searching. The first 4 overs of the innings were bowled by 4 different bowlers. It meant Matt Henry, New Zealand's most reliable seamer in this format, delivered just a single over at the start. Glenn Phillips, their only off-spin option after leaving out Cole McConchie, bowled just once in the power play, despite his first over costing only 5. "I think the way they played the over Abhishek, I thought played that very smart," Santner explained. "I know at times he comes a little bit hard at the off-spinner, but he gave it over to Sanju. And then I think the first kind of 3 overs is when the ball is doing its most. And then I think you can really capitalize on the last 3 of the power play like they did. So it was always going to be hard. I think if Sanju got out, definitely would have been another option for GP to bowl to the 2 left-handers. But when you're not taking wickets, it's always a challenge. I think the tale of the day was the 2 power plays," Santner said. "They were 90 for none, and we were 3 for 40. From that point, the equation was always going to be steep. Chasing 2-5-6 against a team that had already seized control of the match is hard work. And against India, the best T20 side in the world, the margin for error shrinks even further. When you come up against a very good team in a final, you always want to do well," Santner said. "And I think we all know that we weren't at our best tonight. And if you're at your best against a very good team, you're going to be exposed, and that's kind of what we were tonight. So I think we probably look at some options with the ball and with the bat, and can reflect on that again. You have to be going pretty well against India in a final." On this night, those 6 overs at the start of the innings were enough to tilt the final. Santner had read the pitch correctly. He had anticipated India's intent as well, but what he could not afford was for them to dominate the phase entirely. Once India did, the final had already begun to slip away.